Do you want us to, once we get it all on, you want us to flip it up and turn it on? No? Okay.
I'll be on the other end holding on to the wires.
Gotcha. Okay, I won't do that.
Is upgrading your 100 amp overhead service to a 200 amp underground service a job best saved for the professionals? We're about to find out. I would like to go from 100 amps to 200 amps, and the problem is my meter is in my carport. This is no longer allowed. You can't have your meter anywhere that could be closed in, and you're really not supposed to have it anywhere where cars could be driving by it, but we'll just ignore that for now. So 100 amp used to be common when everything was gas stove, gas dryer, gas heat, but we've had some things converted in our house, and now we really need 200 amps. My power runs from the Duke power pole at the street to an auxiliary pole in my backyard, and then back to the gable side of my house where it comes into a weatherhead, travels across my attic floor, down through the ceiling of my carport till it hits my meter, where then it runs down through the floor of the carport and into the bomb slash fallout slash storage room shelter, which lies beneath this carport. The first thing I need to do is apply for a permit. I know a lot of you are probably thinking you have to be a professional electrician to upgrade your service, but thankfully where I live, you can apply for a homeowner's exemption and do the work yourself. I just have to make a trip down to the city offices and apply for that exemption. There's some notarized paperwork that goes with that. And after that, I'm able to pull the permits and begin the work myself. So you can see where my meter is in the carport. And we want to move it right about there. So when I installed this panel a few years ago, I already knew I was going to upgrade everything to 200 amps. I punched out the 2-inch knockout on the back of this panel and hooked the PVC conduit up to the back of it. Then I punched a hole in this concrete block wall and I installed my panel with the PVC conduit sticking through, with every intention that I would bring the new 200 amp feed into the back of this panel and make this the sub panel of this panel. Now before I go further, you need to know I did have to contact my power provider and the city and make sure they were both okay with the new location of the meter. The city said if Duke's okay, we're okay. And Duke said if the city's okay, we're okay. So everything's okay. Duke was also kind enough to provide me with a booklet free of charge that told me everything I was required to do so that they could bring my power in at a new location. The book also points me to an online list of approved meter bases that I can install. Next, I applied for my homeowner's exemption, and then I applied for my permit. After getting the exemption and the permit, it's time to go pick up a meter base. So I'm traveling to Augusta, Georgia today. Apparently, due to some sort of past issue of large proportions, there are no 200 amp meter sockets in Greenville, at least none that have like a 200 amp breaker cutoff inside. So went back on the internet and searched and searched and searched, and apparently Augusta, Georgia is just full of meter sockets. I'm just hoping they are the right kind. Everything looks right. I compared it to my Duke Energy meter socket recommendations. You know, you have to pick from a list. Anyway, the one I'm going after is like $197. Now there might be another one hidden somewhere, but all these electrical distributor guys seem to think there are no 200 amp sockets. Before I leave Georgia, let's have a look at it. That looks pretty good. It's pretty heavy. I thought it was going to be like pretty dinky, but it looks good. Nice 200 amp breaker. All right, underground. First thing I need to do is get all these shelves out of the way so that we can punch through that concrete wall. So here is the new meter. And this one's made by Midwest, which I'd never heard of, but I haven't heard of a lot of these companies. There's actually a lot of companies that make electrical equipment. And I thought since I hadn't heard of them, it was going to be kind of dinky, but this thing is heavy duty. I guess they're all made to certain specs. Let's get this out of the way. It looks like I'm going to have to come into the bottom. Obviously this is going to be an underground feed, and I'm also going to have to come out of the bottom. Beggars can't be choosers. This was my only option. Looks like you can use a 5/16 to open these up. So the way this works is the power from Duke comes underground up through this large knockout right here, travels through this little chase right here, and to the top of this meter socket. If this were an overhead installation, it would come through the hole in the top. And then the power goes through here, through this breaker, this 200 amp breaker. And then our end of it is we knock out one of these 4 knockouts down here, or 5, there's actually one over here, and bring it into the house. So what we're gonna do is knock out this one right here. The largest ring here is 2 inches. And then we're gonna hang this on the wall temporarily where it's gonna go. And we're going to trace that out on the wall, and then we're going to drill through the wall for our conduit to pass through. After we drill through the wall for the conduit to pass through, this is called a conduit hub. It'll stick through the back and the middle there. This is the one we're going to knock out, and it has a female thread here. And then we'll take this male threaded PVC connection and we'll thread that in there, and then we can start with our actual PVC conduit. So I'm going to set this up on a couple little blocks of wood here, or a block of wood. Then I'm going to take a screwdriver, so hammer where it actually bends. And then we'll see if we can get around here on the back. Take some pliers. Now let's go outside and mark the wall. And I apologize for the noise. They are in the middle of building a house over there. So the meter socket needs to be between 4 and 6 feet above the finished ground. So obviously 5 feet is the ideal height. This here is 5 feet, so I think the top of the meter box would be too high. So we actually need to come down a little. So we'll go with 4.5 feet. I'm just gonna mark over here to the side, and then we'll put the meter base right here. When you're doing stuff to code, everything also has to be done in a neat and workmanlike manner. So always level everything. So I want the middle of the meter to be about with that line there. And we'll temporarily mount the thing on the wall while we make sure conduit hole is going to be in exactly the right place. We're going to be using these 5/16 concrete anchors, and I have a 1/4 inch masonry bit here. We're going to use in this little cheap hammer drill. Try to drill it nice and straight. Make sure we're on hammer, and we are. But first I need to put on some eye and hearing protection. I don't want to hang this temporarily with the actual masonry screws, because screwing them in and out will wallow out the hole and make it loose. And sometimes actually screwing them in and out more than you need to will snap the heads off. It weakens them. So I got this cheap little Allen wrench that came with something. It's about the same thickness as the hole. Actually, it's a little loose. The tighter the better. And what I'm going to do is temporarily hang the meter from this little Allen wrench. Re-level it, because one thing you don't want to do is get any of your masonry holes off, because it's next to impossible to move them around once you've drilled for them. So we're going to be extra careful laying this out. All right, that is level. I have to see if I can actually start this one. Probably gonna have to drill that last one after the fact. Let's go ahead and drill out for this hole. Now, they do make big diamond coated bits. I think they call them core drilling bits or something like that, to make a hole that big with one pass, but for some reason they don't have them right now. So we're gonna drill several little holes around the perimeter and then knock out the inside. I do have this larger masonry bit here. I think this is about 1 inch, and it looks like it's deep enough to go all the way through the block wall and this stone. So in order that my hole is straight, so the conduit comes out in the right place, I'm actually going to center this and start with this, and then we'll work our way around the outside and chip it out. But that way I should have a hole on the inside of the wall in exactly the same place as this one. I don't believe this drill bit was actually made to work with this type of drill, but we'll make do. And it loosened up again. I think these are the kind that lock into the Bosch drills. Maybe they lock into several different kinds of drills. Anyways, that kind of puts it off kilter in here. And we made it through the inside. Let's go see what it looks like. There we are, all the way back at the back corner. Oh yeah. All right, let's go ahead and drill some more holes. Now I need to remember to make this big enough for that big fitting to fit through too, so. No. It is with cheap drills. Should really invest in a better hammer drill. Oh no. Now I got a few of these cold chisels. I'll start with a little one and see how it goes. Just gonna kind of go in between all these holes. But you get the idea. Well, it looks like we gotten pretty far on the outside here, so let's go inside and chip away a little. Okay, so hopefully here's an easier way to do this. Now let's see if this fitting will fit in there. Have to work on it some more. Okay, I believe the hole's big enough, but before I commit to it, we're gonna go ahead and put this fitting on the back of this, and we're gonna put our PVC transition here and transition to a length of PVC that'll make it all the way through the wall. And then we'll make sure that this is able to slide in nice and still stay nice and level and plumb before we actually finish screwing it in. Now I'm going to cut this PVC with a miter saw just because it makes nice neat square cuts, but you can cut PVC with just about any kind of saw. Hacksaw, handsaw, Japanese saw, common toolbox saw. If I'm somewhere where I don't have access to a miter saw, I'll just use a reciprocating saw with a metal cutting blade on it, and it cuts it almost as fast as this, but it doesn't cut it as square, obviously. So just neaten up one end of this. And then I'll cut me off a piece long enough to get through the wall, which is, we'll do about 1 foot. Let's cut it a little bit long just to make sure we can get our fitting on. It's going to be on the inside of the wall. See how neat those ends are? And then what I'm also going to do is take a knife or a file and soften up these inside edges so that when we're pulling cable, there's nothing for it to get snagged on. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this hub to this PVC connector. Use a little pipe dope instead of Teflon tape. Well, that's just a big mess. Probably should have just used the Teflon tape. Now we'll go ahead and glue up this end with some gray PVC cement. Put this down so we don't get PVC cement everywhere. Put a little bit in there, around there, and twist. That should be good. Make sure we put our O-ring back on here. This will come through from the back side. Now I'll take a flathead screwdriver and kind of hammer this around. Now let's see if it fits through the hole and stays plumb on the wall. We actually need to chisel out around this side a little bit more so it can move this way. All right. Now we'll remark the bottom holes and screw it all in. When we go to screw it in, we're actually gonna take some of this duck seal, kind of like plumber's putty, make a little donut of it, wrap it around the bolt, and that'll keep the water out of the panel. Now we'll put this plastic cap on the top of this to keep the weather out. Now for the time being, we just need to put the panels back on. Make sure that's turned off. Well, this thing said remove only when meter is installed, so I figured I better put it back on. I think that'll work for the time being. Now let's go inside and work on the conduit. We'll fill this all with foam, and then I'll probably patch this with hydraulic cement. This is called an LB conduit body, and what it's for is to make cable easier to pull while also adding a 90 to it. So you can take off this panel and you can pull the cable out here and then fish it up through here. So this is what's going to make the transition over here. And then it'll be something like this. We'll have a sweep. We'll probably have to extend that a little bit and have this sweep go up to the ceiling and direct that to our panel over there. First thing we need to do is cut this back flush. And for that, I'm gonna use this old Marples pull saw with some missing teeth here. I'm literally just gonna put it up against the cement since I'm not worried about it. We'll save this little piece of cutoff because I think we'll be able to use it. Let's clean this up a little bit. Now we just need to glue this to that. Actually, before we cover that up with this, we need to get in there in foam. Otherwise, this is going to obstruct our ability to do that. Well, I found a full can of this window and door stuff, but the top was messed up on it. So I'm going to see if this straw I happen to have in one of the cars will work. Actually fits good. Let's see if it works. Yeah. I don't want to come out too far because it's going to mess up where I glue. Oh, I'm getting it on my fingers. Now let's glue this on before the foam starts pushing out of the hole. Got my level on standby to make sure it's nice and plumb. Get around there. Gonna have to clean this off. I'm gonna have to go get some more conduit before I finish this, and so I thought I might as well pick up some wire. So I'm gonna get Feisty Kate to help me measure the distance from there over to there. Right there. 29, 30, 31, 33 feet just to be safe. Yep.
Learn the essentials of lawn care from our instructors, like products and pest control.
Would you like an e-receipt?
Oh, that's a bummer. I just realized 2 sticks isn't enough. I should have known it's 23 feet from there to this other end, and a stick of conduit is 10 feet long. Now I'm going to dry fit everything together first because it's going to be difficult getting all the angles just perfect to get from end to end diagonally across the ceiling. This little piece right here combined with this is going to get us moving in the right direction. It's got about 1 inch before it hits the stop in there. It's got to go to about there. Cut it right about there. Now let's get this side ready. So we'll just go ahead and dry fit this one on here too. Now I think I'm going to have to use these 245s to get this going in the right direction. And we might have to use a little heat actually. We want to go that way. Yeah, I think we're going to have to use a little heat. And I don't think you're really allowed to use heat unless you have special PVC conduit bending tools that are made to use with heat. We'll see. This is roughly the right direction. We just need it to not point down. I'm going to heat this up and try to relax it a little bit. Just put this in there. Oh, there we go. Like we're aimed in the right direction. Oh, just hold it lined up and let it cool. Now we just need to make the connecting piece that goes down the middle. And I think what I'm going to do is snap a chalk line from right above that box to right there, and that'll give us a straight line. So we can go ahead and start fastening some of the dry PVC to the ceiling maybe. Now let's mark all this so we know exactly how to put it back together. Make sure we're lined up. And that should be about level. I'm gonna set up my masonry drill bit for these Tapcon screws that we're gonna strap the pipe with. So I want the depth stop set for the depth of the bolt so I don't blow through the carport up there. That should be good right there. Also, different sizes of PVC pipe require different strapping distances. So we're working with 2-inch PVC, which has to be strapped or supported every 5 feet. The thinner the PVC, the more frequently it has to be strapped. The thicker the PVC, the farther distance you can go with your strapping. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little bit of pipe here and I'm gonna put it on my chalk line, and then I'm going to mark where the strapping needs to go, and then I'll go sew on down the line. This is actually 5. Put our pipe there. I'm going to leave these a little loose so that we can work the pipe up in there. PVC expands and contracts when it gets hot or cold. So if you do a long run, you have to put one of these expansion fittings in. Actually, like a greased slip fitting, and they slide in and out. So as the PVC contracts, it stretches out to make up the difference, and as it expands, it compresses. You'll find charts in the National Electric Code on how much PVC expands and contracts. And if it expands or contracts more than 6 millimeters, I believe it is, roughly, depending on your temperature swings, then you have to have an expansion fitting. And I'm definitely going to exceed the 6 millimeters because this area is not conditioned and it swings from freezing to 85 degrees. Now let's add just a short little piece of PVC right there, then we'll add our expander, and then we'll continue on this side. Expander. This can actually be the last part we put in. It kind of acts like a union where you can fit it into a tight spot and then extend it in order to glue it on the 2 pieces of PVC that come in here. All right, got it kind of loosely assembled up here. Now let's go ahead and glue it all up. Now we'll leave this connection for the end, and we'll go down to the far end right now. And all right, now let's finish tightening the rest of our hangers. Now it's time to pull some wire. I'm actually going to try not to pull it. I'm going to try to push it because frankly I don't have anything I can pull big wire with. If it's still got a nice coil in it when you're just running it in there, it's going to want to stay coiled as it goes through the conduit, and that's going to cause a lot more friction and be harder to push. So this gives us a big area to kind of try to straighten out the wire as it goes in. And since it's a fairly straight run over there, I'm hoping that we can push it the whole way. I'll get the wire, and I also got a big tube of lubricant, wire pulling lubricant, and we'll coat it with that as we push it in, and hopefully that'll make things a lot easier. Look at this, it's like yellow and it almost smells like you could eat it. It's like a custard or something. But no, I don't think you can eat it, so don't try that. I'm gonna try to make sure I get all this tape off because I don't want anything in there that's gonna hang us up. So I'm just gonna try to straighten it up a little and stick it in this hole. Now before I even put the lube on, I want to see how easy it'll go without it. And I don't think it'll go that easy. That connection right there, I must be hitting the lip. Oh, does that mean I need to pull it from the other side? Are all these facing the wrong way? Duh, I should have thought about that. And for me to start on this side, I'm gonna have to pull out these cabinets. Now me feeding this in here is a total experiment. It almost smells lemony. I mean, it's yellow and it smells kind of lemony. I don't want to get it on my hands because then it'll make it, I think it'll make my hands slick. And maybe I'm applying this all wrong, I don't even know. We're going somewhere. Alright, I think I just hit the expansion joint, and I had a feeling that was going to happen. When I put this expansion joint on, I arranged it thinking I was going to push the wire this way, and then of course I planned everything else backwards. So now it's hitting the lip right there. Once we get over that, the rest of it's pretty much home free, I think. I guess I'll give it a few more jerks, see if we can jump it. Oh, there we go, it jumped. I'm stuck on something else now. Maybe I'm stuck right here. We can get past there. Let's just see. Oh, we made it past there. Okay. Hopefully, that was the end of the bumpy road. We have cable. That's probably enough to get through inside of that panel, but I have plenty on both ends, so I'm going to push it a little further. Now let's go out here to the panel again, take the covers off. We'll fish these through the hole. There's that one. Let's go inside and make sure we're actually pulling them through and we're not making a bad kink in them. Yeah, I'd say that's a little bit of a kink there. All right, I'll just pull them back out and start one at a time. Just get them all separated. So we'll go first with you. Yeah, there's no way I could have done all four at once. All right. Go outside and pull that. There we go. Now I'll just leave y'all out here as I push the other two through. Okay, now we just need to trim all the wires and screw them down to the right buses. Okay, so our two big black conductors will go here and here. Doesn't matter which one goes where. Each are 120 and they'll make 240 combined volts. Then our neutral, the black with the white, will go in right here, and our ground will go in right here. So you can see the neutral and the ground are actually tied together in this panel, because in the last panel closest to where your power comes in from your service, the neutrals and grounds are all tied together there. But going forward from this box, everything else is considered a sub panel, and the grounds and the neutrals are kept separated. Then after we get these tied in, we'll take the bare copper ground wire we bought and we'll screw it into here. We'll run it out the bottom of the box. There's actually a hole provided down here for it, and it will be tied via acorn clamps to two 8-foot long copper coated steel rods that will space at least 6 feet apart to ground this whole system here at the house. Before I get too far into this, I want to make sure I have an Allen wrench big enough, 1/4 inch hex. Also, I got these cable cutters. I think they're just the cheap Harbor Freight kind. They're a hand-me-down. Hopefully they'll work cutting this big stuff. But before I actually get to this panel came with a pamphlet with some instructions and information in it, and I'm just gonna make sure I'm not missing anything, just in case it says, you know, don't do this or something like that. All right, I'm gonna start with a neutral since it's on top. I don't wanna cut too much off. I'll be able to get that in there. Give it a little more slack. Cut it right about there. Now, I don't want to cut these conductors inside here. I just want to cut the insulation, and I want to cut it back enough to where I can see a little metal showing below this lug and metal showing above the lug. Just gonna give it a little squeeze, just a gentle squeeze, and kind of work it around here. There we go. Let's back this lug out. See if I can get it in here. Showing on the top and bottom. Tighten this up. Try to keep it centered. Now, I'm sure all these have torque ratings. I don't have the expensive electrician's torquing tool here, so I'm just gonna have to go till it's nice and snug. As electricity is conducted, this thing will heat up and cool and heat up and cool, which causes wires to loosen. So that's kind of what you're trying to combat with the proper torquing. Looks like I better move on to my conductors next because the ground is kind of buried under here. Since this one seems to be on this side, I'll bring it up to this lug, back that lug out. It's gonna be like a bar. If it sticks out so much I can't get the panel door on, that's gonna be a problem. So I don't wanna have too much slack in here. I just want enough. Looks like right there it's gonna work. Woo, that's tough stuff. Come down it's probably about an inch. Give it a little squeeze. Some people do this with just a utility knife, and I'm sure there's some sort of proprietary tool. There we go. Feed this up into this lug over here. Actually, I think I need a little more showing. Probably made this very difficult on myself, but here we go. Now we're showing pretty good. I don't want to strip this. All this stuff is made out of aluminum, unless it's nickel coated copper. So obviously, if you know anything about screwing into copper, It's very soft and easy to damage threads, so not too tight. And again, ideally you would have a torque wrench for doing this. I feel that's pretty good. On to the next one. Might be easier if I split this up the side and then I can peel it off. They like to see all these edges look nice and neat. See if we can neaten that up a little bit. Back out this lug and put it in there. See if I can make this a little bit easier. It's really hard to get in this little space. All right, I think that's pretty good. Now for the ground, which will hook up right here. This is a flathead. See if I can strip this whole one with just this utility knife. Get the ground up through that lug. I can see it in the top and the bottom. So, she's all wired up. Let's go ahead and hook in the ground wire. So what I'm going to do is just pull some of this out and feed it up through the hole made for the ground right there. And we'll go ahead and hook that up to the lugs. Now we're ready to cut a hole in the concrete for them to punch through from the power line up there. So what they told me is cut out a 3x3 square of concrete here. But I'm also going to cut about 8 feet in a small strip so that I can actually hammer in my ground rods in 2 different places over here right up against the building. We can go ahead and put the cover on this line box. It has a little weather seal. I'll go ahead and start the screws through to hold that in place. There we go. Start this one. I'm going to set this on minimal torque. Should be good. Now this one over here, we're gonna have to kind of leave like this until we're ready for Duke to come out and switch over everything. We'll get to that later. So I just taped the screws and gasket on the cover there, and I'll just set it up here. Now I'm gonna draw out a 3x3 square. I got my $170 Evolution saw here. Pepper, don't leave. Pepper, don't leave. Come here. Get back in here. And I got my sprayer of water, which I'll use to keep the blade cool. Obviously I can't use water with that saw since it's really a dry saw. You're not supposed to, unless you plug it into a GFCI outlet. So I have my little portable GFCI I made. We'll plug that in to keep it safe. Put some hearing and eye protection on and get going. Got the cuts done. Now I'm gonna try a sledgehammer at this first. And if that doesn't work, I'll get out the SDS drill. So I think the trick is to hit near the corners first. Alright, so the weather from Hurricane Ian's supposed to happen tonight, so though this is all broken up, I'm not going to get the concrete out of the dirt yet. This is all the way down to the red clay that's underneath this driveway, but if we get some torrential downpours, the water is going to run down this driveway and probably dig out all the mud in there and undermine the driveway probably. So I'm going to leave this in here to act as a buffer for the rain. And then hopefully after all the rain and stuff stops, we'll dig this out and run the ground wire to the two 8-foot grounding stakes. Time for the ground rod. So you need an 8-foot long copper coated steel ground rod, 5/8 of an inch thick, or you can use solid copper. I don't remember the exact gauge it's supposed to be, but if the ground rod does not have 25 ohms or less resistance to the ground, then you have to have 2 ground rods. And since I don't really have a way to test it, and most people do it this way, they just go ahead and install the 2 ground rods. And they have to be connected together by 1 grounding wire that goes all the way back to the grounding block. So we're gonna hammer these in, then we're going to connect them with acorn connectors, I think they call them. Then we should be nice and grounded, something like that. Oh, and did I say they have to be 6 feet apart at least per code? The further the better. I happen to have one of these fence post drivers, so we're just gonna stick this over the ground rod and hammer it down. Now for the other one. I have to finish this off with a hammer, or maybe this end. Yeah. Let me double check my measurement and make sure these are at least 6 feet apart. 6 feet is right here, so we'll just do it like 7 feet. Oh yeah. Awesome. I don't want to do this one too far before I put the acorn connector on it. Okay, here is a ground rod clamp. Let's go ahead and get our ground out of the bag. I want this to run as perfectly straight down this wall as I can. Probably going to need to remortar this rock. Oh yeah, should really do that before I do this. Alright, well that was obviously a little detour, but
I think it looks almost original. Now we're back in business. All right, put this back in place. So this will need to run all the way down to the dirt. And I think that's probably good. Get our other ground clamp. And a lot of this left slack on the dirt, the better. So I'm not gonna cut this or anything, because the more of this copper that's in contact with the ground, the better grounding we got, right? Nice and snug. Now I'm gonna hammer these into the ground until they're just flush, so that the inspector can come and still see that all this is hooked together. And then after he inspects, we'll go ahead and hammer these all the way under the surface of the dirt so that they disappear and our concrete will cover and hide everything. So you can still see that peeking up there. And I think we are ready for our inspection. All right, let's walk through it. So we have our ground connected to our bus, and it goes down through this grounding wire to our two 8-foot long 5/8 inch diameter grounding rods, spaced 7 feet apart in this case. Here is our 4/0 aluminum cable, which is 200 amp capable, being fed through the wall into our line box inside the storage room in there. It comes into the line box, follows this gentle 90 sweep through the conduit, across the ceiling, have an expansion fitting here for temperature changes, and goes to this other line box over here where the cable is still loose.
All right, I've got some good news. I applied for my inspection online. They make it really easy through the website of my city department. Click on some stuff and say request inspection, and boom, it gets the ball rolling. You get to choose a time frame to an extent, and I picked the soonest possible time. The inspector just came and just went. He said everything looked great, and he's gonna go ahead and get Duke to come on out and do the switchover. So apparently this pole is so old and defective, they said there were some cracks in it or something. So for me to get underground power, they actually have to replace the entire pole first. So they flagged it a couple of weeks ago. And now they're all here to take it down, swap it out. The Duke Energy guys, 3 or 4 trucks, were here all day yesterday. They put those insulative things, I don't know if you can see them on the cables up there, at the very end of the day. And pretty much all day long, they stood here digging this hole. Now I would love to get footage of this whole pole coming down and the new one going up, but I have to go to work. My daughter just texted me while I was at work that the Duke people or Pike people are taking down our power pole out front, so I am headed home. Yep. Definitely something going on here. default, the road is closed. Oh my goodness. Can I get into my driveway? I don't know. Might have to cut through my neighbor's yard. Looks like they're back, and this time they brought a bunch of cable. Oh boy, this might be go time. They asked me if my electrician was ready to switch over the power today. Yeah, I guess I am. Let's make sure the generator is ready. We want to be able to keep the refrigerators running. All right, so here's my loose power. I'm gonna have to go ahead and pull that through there, which means I'm gonna have to go ahead and kill power to this panel. So turn off the breaker that's running this, which I believe is that. And then start setting this panel up as panel number 1. Let's see what all we're gonna end up killing here. Shop, not a big deal. Living room, not a big deal. Sewing, 3rd floor, not a big deal. Basement front, we'll see. That might have this refrigerator right here on it. Bathrooms, oh no, there's the basement refrigerator right there. So it is gonna kill that. So I might as well go ahead and get the generator running and that plugged in. Got some big heavy duty drop cord here. All right, it looks like the fuel is on, and I guess this is a choke. Let's say which way to choke it. I don't know which way it's choked. Let's pop off the air filter cover, see if we can tell. So that is choked, and this is open. So we'll go ahead and choke it. I wonder if I have to pull start it, or if it has an electric starter. That's off. That's on. Maybe it is a pull start. All right, now this is actually the cord to the refrigerator right here. So we'll just swap these out. Plug you in. Now, follow this back out there and plug it in. See if it's running. The light's on. Yes! I just realized the washer's running. It's got 35 minutes left, and I think Feisty Kate will be really upset if I turn it off before it's done. I think we're getting close. Does that mean that's where you are right now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Pretty close. About 30 inches deep or so, I guess.
I guess this is the fun part, right? Oh, yeah.
See if we can find it here. Oh, yeah, there's the head right there. Yeah, I'll pull it back about 6 inches. Money. Money.
Cool thing is this light overhead here, shop light, is run off of a plug. So I've got this run from my generator. So when the power goes out, I just switch over and I still have full light right here. Come on, washer. Hurry up. While that washer runs down, I'm going to go ahead and open this panel up before I turn the power off to it. Obviously this is dangerous. I don't recommend it. In fact, anything you see in this video today, it is perform at your own risk. I'm not an electrician. I'm just a DIYer. So hopefully you can see through here. This is where we need to come in. And right now you can see everything is being fed on these wires from this conduit to this breaker right here. Again, what I'm doing is kind of dangerous. If I touch any of this stuff here, those two, I could be electrocuted, so I'm being very careful. So there's my neutral bus, that's my ground bus, and there's my two legs of hot power. Trying to stage everything on standby. I got an extra light here. Here's my electrical bag. Here's the wire I'm going to use to make the old panel number 1, the new sub panel. Now I got to find that 100 amp breaker too. So they're getting ready to pull conduit. Come on, I'm just gonna have to kill it. Let's go ahead and kill the power and see what happens. Is that the right one? Oh yes, I just realized the load center receptacle is on this panel. So we still have, actually we still have the washing machine too. Huh, could have left that on. Fridge upstairs, yes. All right, let's make sure we don't have any power on this over here. I know some people call these death sticks, but now we can do this the old-fashioned way too. I'm going to test from a hot to the neutral here. So I'll do both of those. I got no voltage there and no voltage there. Now we can always just double check our death stick, but this panel still has power to it. So this should show hot. Yep. So you can see the stick is working. Let's start decoupling all this stuff. Got my 1/4 inch hex. And of course that one's smaller. We'll come back to that. Those wires out. 3/16. See if we can pull our wire through there. First. Should probably do the thick one first. See what we look like inside there. I think we might be hitting a joist. No joist. But there we go. I'll go do the second conductor. Just need to pry this so it's not hitting the lip of that conduit while I push it in. There we go. Now the neutral should be a little easier, hopefully. Yes. In and the ground. Now we got the wire pulled. I missed it. Oh well. So this ground will go right here to the grounding bus. It's the smallest lug. Just get these out of the way. Now we'll just cut this about right here. And that'll give us enough so that the copper can be seen on both sides of that lug. I'm going to give it just a little more slack, just because. Peel it off. Now you see, I can see aluminum on both sides of that lug. So I know the insulation is not being pinched, and I know it's all the way through. Turn it like that. Let's see if I can get this in there. Oh, we haven't even gotten to the conductors yet. Oh, come on now. There we go. Conductor above and below, no insulation's pinched. That's pretty snug right there. I want to start a little long because there are no do-overs with this. Yeah. You know what I'm gonna do? Those guys are still out there working on the power around that breaker, and I don't want any chance of them. Nope. And I don't want any chance of them accidentally turning this on, so I need to make sure that that breaker stays turned off. I'm just going to put this tape on there just so nobody turns that on.
Do you want us to, once we get it all on, you want us to flip it up and turn it on? No? Okay.
I'll be on the other end holding on to the wires.
Gotcha. Okay, I won't do that.
So hopefully I made my point not to turn this on. Go ahead, add to the comments how crazy this is. Now I need to move the tripod out of the way so I can get some leverage on this. There, over there. Yes. Oh yeah, this is going quicker. So I guess with practice. Oh yes, look at that. Some showing at the top, some showing at the bottom. We are ready to tighten that down. That is pretty snug. Get all these wires back where they were. Make sure the grounds are not near these conductors. I wouldn't want those to get down here and short on those. Now this one's ready to accept power, and the neutral and ground buses are already separate, so we don't have to worry about that. Now let's run some new wires to this box. I think this box is dead right now. Yeah. Let's just go outside and see if they've cut the line to this. I know they have because the power went off, but better safe than sorry. Looks like we're all hooked up out here. And here's my old meter. Old meter is gone. So those two wires right there should be my old power just sticking out, I think, because it ran along there. So those run up there, and they were just cut right there. And my new power is going down that gray conduit to the right of that pole there. And into the ground, where it travels underneath here to my new meter box. Okay, one of the things we have to fix in this panel before we energize it is, if you'll notice, there are grounds and neutrals going to the same buses on both sides. So we need to separate those. This one has a green screw. This is our grounding bus. So this right here is the grounding tie bar. It's held with these two bolts, and it ties the ground and the neutral buses together, and we want to separate those. First of all, let's get this power out of this 200 amp main breaker here, or what would have been the power. Our neutral and our ground are actually connected to the same bar right there. Pull that out. Just pulled that out. That grounds the pipe in the house. It was going to the ground/neutral bus. I'll run it to the ground in this panel. Okay, you know what? I've got my refrigerator and stuff upstairs on this panel, so I'm going to go ahead and look this over really quick, and then I'm going to energize this panel. I'm going to make sure before I energize it, everything looks good. Conductor, conductor, tight, neutral tight, ground tight. Oh, I could go ahead and run this ground wire Back in here, there's a tiny little circle, which I'm going to punch out to pull this ground wire down into. There. There we go. In there. And again, I don't want this ever to touch my conductor. So I'm gonna, after I get it kind of over here where I want it, I'm gonna fish it up really high. Push it way up there, the top. Yes. All right, grounds, good. Neutrals, good. I know this isn't the prettiest panel. Make sure nothing is touching my conductors. Nothing is falling out of place, everything's snapped in. If I haven't said it yet, I like to put a lot of extra wire in here just because since I had these two panels, I didn't know if I was going to swap stuff around, so I wanted extra wire just in case I needed to move something from panel to panel or from bottom to top or top to bottom or whatever, so that's why there's so much extra wire in here. Now let's go ahead and give this some juice. That's on. All right, let's turn on the main very carefully. Don't want to touch anything in here because right now these conductors are hot, which means these buses aren't hot yet, but these buses are about to be hot as soon as I flip this on. That is on. Let's see if we got any power upstairs. You got some power up here in the kitchen. This is where we need it. Uh-oh. Well, that's on. So some of the power's on, so that's good. So it means whatever the refrigerator was on is on a different panel, but now we can run an extension cord from somewhere else to there. So I think that also gave us back power to this outlet that this is plugged into down here. So unplug the refrigerator from the generator, plug it back in over here. Don't ask me why that's all like that. It's just temporary. Refrigerator light still on. So let's go kill the generator. Actually, let's turn the fuel off to it and let it die on its own. That way, when it travels, fuel won't slosh into the carburetor or out of the carburetor into the air filter and stuff like that, or it won't go through and wash the cylinders. Whenever you're carrying something around or jostling it, it's good to turn off the fuel. All right, I'll turn this off. So I want neutrals only here, grounds only here. There's a neutral. Just going to go back and forth, side to side. So we'll take a ground off of here. Now remember, this panel is not energized. There's no power going to it whatsoever. Doesn't even have the wires. So it's probably best, even if your neutral and grounds are tied up together, to just separate them anyways, just in case you ever have to do this. Now with these arc fault breakers, the neutral isn't actually long enough to get around to the new neutral side, so I'm going to have to swap some breakers around. So any arc fault on the ground side, I'm going to have to move over to the neutral side and swap it with one that's not arc fault. So I just need to make a note of which ones I'm swapping so I can update my panel here. For instance, I'm probably going to swap this one. Let's swap it with the fridge. Basement lights, fridge. Swapped. Pull out that. Looks like somebody has spliced this. I'm gonna have to fix that. In the future, not right now. It feels like it's a soldered connection, so I think it'll be okay. See if this one's easier to move. I think it will be, because it's right on top of everything. Snap it where the fridge was. I love snap-in breakers. Hook our fridge back up, sticking it in the jaws there. Tighten down the screw. Make sure it's not pinching insulation, and it's not. Or was that? It goes right there. So now I'll just hook this neutral into the neutral bus. This breaker's kind of getting in the way. This is the one that was powering the other panel. Something I also noticed on this panel is there's no grounding lug. So it should have a lug just like it does right there, over there. Hope I can get one at the home center. Be very careful pulling this out over here so I don't touch anything. Make some space. Back to moving grounds and neutrals. Okay, I have all the neutrals on one side and all the grounds on the other side. Now I'm going to untie the bars. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and pull the wire through here to get this thing ready to go, but I don't want to energize it until I go get a grounding lug for this. So we'll go ahead and run our ground through. And again, I'm making sure not to touch anything in this panel because it's live. Something else I just realized I have to do, aside from getting a lug for here, for this ground side, in order for me to tie in this ground over here, I'm going to need a grounding lug for down here. And also a neutral for down there because these are definitely not big enough and they didn't leave another space for tying in neutrals and grounds of this size. I can't tell you how many pretty sunsets I've seen when coming out of a home center. There's a reason this road is called Skyview. You can see it from over here. Oh yeah. Okay, let's see if we can figure out how these work. And it looks like we can actually place them anywhere on the bus. So I guess this little bolt has the same thread size as the rest of these screws. So I might do it up here at the top and take those two ground wires out of there and replace it with this thing. Looks like I'm gonna need to swap a few of these. This fits. There we go. Now we need the neutral. Before I do that, I need to remember to put back those grounds, so I'm going to do that really quick. That's another good point. Every time you take something out, deal with it immediately. Don't leave it because this will end up looking camouflaged in here. If they're sitting in here and I forget to put them back, they just kind of disappear. Oh, and also, since this is a hot panel, I should really be finding what these are going to before I unscrew them, and I should flip the breaker off, but I'll do that when I get to the neutral side. I'm just gonna put the lug way down here somewhere. Right here. There we go. So I'll have plenty of room. So here's what I got for the conductors. Hopefully it is enough. I'm gonna start over here and I'm gonna feed what will be the neutral through here. Now, pulled it over here. Shows on both sides. Now let's terminate it on this end. We need to come over here to that lug on the neutral bus. So I don't have a lot of extra cable to work with because this stuff is expensive. So I'm gonna try to just get this where it needs to go. Let's do it right there. Nice and snug. Why did nobody remind me I haven't done anything with the ground yet? You know that's my fault. A new ground lug. Now for the conductors. So the conductors will go from this 100 amp main to what will be a 100 amp breaker over here. I think I'm going to move this 50 down here and put the new 100 up here. Let's turn this off again. Pull it out. I'm going to go ahead and unscrew these and fish the wires through all this mess. Making sure I'm not clamping my insulation. Okay, snap this in right below this one. Butt in first, and the front. Now I'll measure out my wire to over here. And I'll take a little turn here. Now let's go ahead and do the other one with the scrap we have left. Go ahead and feed it through up here. I think we have just enough. Make sure that doesn't touch anything hot over here. Now, totally over to this panel. Strip gauge, a 1/4 of an inch off of it. Now we'll just snap it in this top slot here. There we go. And the front. Perfect. Now I'll just clean all this up a little bit, get everything tucked in good, get all the tools out of here. Now I'm just going to double check everything. Actually, I'm probably going to triple check everything. So, all neutrals, yes. All grounds, yes. No tie bar. I've got neutral going to neutral over there. It's all secured. I've got ground going to ground over there. It's all secured. I have my 2 hots securely tied into my 100 amp main breaker here, and then tied into my 100 amp breaker over here. Everything looks good. All right, let's go ahead and test it. I'm gonna turn the power on this one first. And let's see, are these all on? So we'll turn that on too. And when I turn this on, it's probably gonna get a little brighter in here. We'll see. I'm not gonna touch anything metal when I turn this on. All right, no explosions, no fires, no sparks. All the lights are coming on, the dehumidifier is on. So, I think we're good to go. Now you're required to cover these blank spaces with blanks if the metal's been knocked out. So I'm gonna go get some blanks and fill those in. I think I have a couple. I happen to have 4 of these little mini ones. Yeah, grab these to redo them. There we go.
I got the circuit schedule updated. So there's the sub panel, 100 amps right there. So we are good to go.
So that's it. That's how you go from a 100 amp service overhead to a 200 amp service underground. If you have any advice or tips or techniques you'd like to share, please add them in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see y'all in the next one.